The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. So, in the previous verse, he spoke about the absolute truth. What is that absolute truth? Vadanti tattva pravidas tattva yajnana brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shubhiti. So now in this verse, he is speaking about how one can realize the absolute truth. So he says that Tat Shraddhadhana Muniyo. So the qualification required to realize the absolute truth is Shraddhadhana, which the Prabhupada translates as seriously inquisitive. So of course, Shraddha also means faith, and somebody who has faith, definitely he will seriously inquire about the absolute truth. If somebody doesn't have faith, then why will he inquire? Only somebody has faith in the absolute truth, he wants to know more about the absolute truth, then he inquires. And then he renders devotional service with Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya. With Jnana and Vairagya, he renders devotional service. And as a result, Pashyanti Atmani Cha Atmanam. So he realizes, so one Atmani refers to the soul, the other Atmanam refers to the Paramatma. So he realizes the Paramatma within himself, he realizes the absolute truth. By Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya, by the practice of devotional service, Shruta Grihitaya means well received. Grihitaya means well received. What? Shruta, the Vedas. So one who has heard attentively the Shrutis, the Vedas, and on the basis of that he practices devotional service with Jnana and Vairagya, then it is possible for one to realize the absolute truth. As Prabhupada writes right in the first sentence of his purport, the absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service to Lord Vasudeva, by the personality of Godhead, who is the full-fledged absolute truth. Okay, so for realizing the absolute truth, what is required is the process of devotional service. Further down the purport, Prabhupada says, devotional service which is based on the foreground of full knowledge combined with detachment from material association and which is fixed by the oral reception of the Vedanta Shruti is the only perfect method by which the seriously inquisitive student can realize the absolute truth. Okay, so one can realize the absolute truth only by devotional service with knowledge and detachment, and which is based on hearing, oral reception from the authoritative scriptures. And regarding the process of hearing, of course, we will be discussing in the further verses. Further on, Prabhupada talks about three classes of devotees. First class, second class, third class. So this you have already studied in the Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion. Who are the three classes? Yes, Kanishta, Madhyam and Uttam. And you definitely know the characteristics of each one of them. So Prabhupada says, material devotees are more attached to material benefit than the transcendental profit. Therefore, one has to make definite progress from the position of material devotional service to the second class devotional position. And then finally, one has to raise himself at least to the stage of a second class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. Okay, so Prabhupada is writing that at least one has to come to the second class level, at least one has to come to the Madhyam platform in order to realize the absolute truth. On the Kanishta platform, it is very difficult. So how can the third class or the Kanishta come to the Madhyam platform and later to the Uttam platform?
associating with like-minded individuals?
Yes. The only cause for that progress is association. Prabhupada writes that in the purport to 9.3 Bhagavad Gita. Anybody remembers 9.3? Yes, good. Ashradhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. So there also Srila Prabhupada is discussing about the three classes of devotees. And there Srila Prabhupada writes very clearly that the only way by which one can progress is association. And similar point Prabhupada is writing here also in the next paragraph. The third class devotee therefore has to go to the personality of devotee in order to learn the instructions of devotional service. And who is that personality of devotee? Such a devotee must be a representative of Shukadeva Goswami like Sutta Goswami and must reach the cult of devotional service for the all-round benefit of people. Okay, so that is the way one can progress from the third class to the second class, and as Prabhupada is saying, at least one must be on the second class platform in order to realize the absolute truth. And in the next paragraph, a sincere devotee must therefore be prepared to hear the Vedic literature like the Upanishads, Vedanta and other literatures left by the previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. Without hearing such literatures, one cannot make actual progress. And without hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. Because that's the important statement. Without hearing and following the instructions. So simply hearing is no good. After hearing, what one has to do? One has to follow the instructions. Otherwise, it will simply be a show of devotional service. Okay. Then one cannot progress. And Prabhupada is quoting the famous verse, which Rupa Goswami also is quoting in the Nectar of Devotion. Shruti Smruti Purana Adi Pancharatra Vidam Vina Ekantiki Hare Bhakti Utmate Eva Kalpate. And the last sentence, by assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called Samadhi. So, by assimilation of the messages, one has to hear and assimilate the message. So, as we know, in the process of learning, there are three stages. What are they? Okay, two are correct. One is
Mananam.
yes, Shravanam, Mananam. The second one is Mananam and Nidhyasana. So that is how the assimilation takes place, by Mananam, contemplation, and then thinking of how to apply. So then it is possible for one to apply and realize that knowledge. So this is how one can realize the absolute truth. Yes.
My question regarding how to come from the third platform to the Madhyamadikarya platform is are those third categories are including Nishkama Karma Yogis and Jnana Mishra Yogis, or those they necessarily need a devotee to develop pure bhakti?
Here, of course, what is being spoken of is only about devotees, not Karma Yogis, Jnana Yogis. These are three classes of devotees. You see, there are three classes of devotees.
Jnana Mishra Bhakti is not considered devotee?
Yes, that's considered devotee. Karma Mishra, Jnana Mishra, Bhakta is fine, but not Karmis and Jnanis.
I was thinking about that. Not Nishkama Karma Yogis?
No, those are Karma Yogis. No, not those. Bhakti Yogis.
Nishkama Karma Yogi is not Karma Mishra Bhakti Yoga?
No, both are different. Both are different. A Karma Yogi is a Karma Yogi and a Bhakta Yogi is a Bhakti Yogi. So, a Nishkam Karma Yogi, now Yoga ladder, you remember Karma Yoga is on the lowest rung of the ladder. Bhakti Yogi is on the topmost. So even though he may be Karma Mishra, Jnana Mishra, Yoga Mishra, but after all he is Bhakta, he is devotee. So he is on the highest platform, though there may be some contamination. And Karma Yogi, even if he is Nishkam Karma Yogi, he is on the lower platform. Why? What is the basic difference between the two?
The objective is different.
Yes, why the objective is different?
One is just performing varnashram with duty without duty.
No, your point is correct. The objective is different. So in what way the objective is different?
There for bhaktas it is only Krishna.
Yes.
And for this karma yogi, that sense gratification, the fruitive result is the
No, he's a Nishkam Karma Yogi, then there's no fruit.
Krishna is not in the center.
Liberation.
Yes, liberation is the goal. For a Nishkam Karma Yogi, liberation is the goal. His realization of the absolute truth may at most be up to the impersonal Brahman. So there is an essential difference in the realization. But the Bhakta Yogi, he has realization that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There may be some mix, but essentially he knows my goal is to achieve Krishna. That's the difference. Okay. Okay, read this.
Bhaktya Sruta Grihitya. Bhaktya means you have to execute the devotional service under the direction of a proper spiritual master. Bhaktya Sruta Grihitya. And you have to hear about Krishna. Two things must go on. If just like here you will find the Archa Vigraha, worshipping the deity, is going on. But if simply these things go on because none of us are expert, there must be Sruta Grihitya. We must hear about Krishna also. Two things must go on parallel lines.
Yes, so there is the Bhagavad Vidhi and the Pancharatma. So both have to go. So Shruta Grihitaya. Grihita. Grihita means, something which sticks. Grihita. Sometimes something like ghee is called Grihita. So Shruta Grihitaya. So it must be well received. The message must be well received, absorbed, assimilated. Not simply superficial. In the purport to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, text 19, purport, Srila Prabhupada says, one must not hear simply like the hogs. One must not hear simply like the hogs. So just like if hogs were to come to the classroom, would they hear or no? They have ears.
Yeah, but you cannot relax.
Sound vibration will go inside. But after that what will happen? Nothing will happen. No change. So similarly, if we also attend classes like that, okay, I'm supposed to sit for the class. Okay. So if one is hearing classes just like that, as a ritual, as a formality, because I'm told to, what to do, I'm supposed to be there for the class, so let me sit somewhere in the corner and do my own work on the laptop as the class goes on. Sometimes we even see some devotees, they're chanting their rounds as the class is going on. So one will not get much benefit then. Shruta Grihitaya. One must attentively, respectfully receive, as Prabhupada very often, the submissive oral reception. One has to receive the message. Then one can try to apply. Okay, let's read this.
This verse describes the practice to realize that tattva. The sages Munaya, the yogis cultivating contemplation, The yogis and the devotees see that jnana of three forms by bhakti. Those who conceive of jnana as Brahman realize Asyanti, the Jiva Atmanam, as the Lord Atman. Tattvam Asi, you Jiva are that the Lord. Those who conceive of the Lord as Paramatma see through meditation the Lord in the heart Atmanam, in their heart Atmanam. Those who conceive of Bhagavan see Bhagavan Atmanam in the mind Atmanam, and also directly in front of them shun and taste the sweetness of the Lord with their very eyes. The sages realize the form of the Lord by bhakti, which is first heard from the Guru Shruta and then practiced
Green, yeah. So that Atmani Atmanam, that depends on what is their realization. So they can realize Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan depending upon their level. Okay. Continue.
The word bhaktya is used with its conventional meaning, indicating hearing and chanting about the Supreme Lord Bhagavan. The worshippers of Brahman and Paramatma must also perform bhakti directed to Bhagavan in order to perform their own sadhanas. Jnana and Vairagya mentioned in this verse are the two sadhanas for jnanis and yogis only. For the devotee, these two arise only from bhakti and indicate the loving nature of bhakti, because he loves the Lord, he strives to know the Lord, and shows distaste for everything else. Since separation, cultivation of jnana and vairagya are forbidden.
So that point we already discussed. For the devotees, there is no need of any separate cultivation of jnana and vairagya, but that goes along with bhakti.
Therefore, for a devotee engaged in my loving service, with mind fixed on me, the cultivation of knowledge and renunciation is generally not the means of achieving the highest perfection within this world.
Okay, fine. Okay, so that's.
So can I ask something? So even in like devotional service, there are certain things which we try to have detachment from.
Right.
While doing bhakti also, our focus is not that okay, we'll do bhakti but not do detachment. I know it's an anga, but we consciously also try to give up practice austerity.
Correct.
So, like we say, do bhakti, it comes as a byproduct, but we also particularly endeavor on that. So how is that?
Yes, so as we just mentioned that's also a part of bhakti. You take any example. You give me some example of the detachment you're talking about.
Like let's say the 4 R's that you are saying.
Yes, so the 4 regulative principles, are they angas of bhakti?
Yes, they are.
Are they angas of bhakti? Among the 64 angas? No, they are not angas of bhakti. But why do we practice them?
It's conducive.
Yes, it's conducive. More importantly.
Guru
Guru
Maharaj.
says
Yes, because the instructions of the Guru. So then, if you take it as instruction of the Guru, then it becomes anga of bhakti.
Okay.
What was the first anga of bhakti?
Guru
Ado Guru Padashraya. So, because they're instructions of Guru, then they become angas of bhakti, even though per se they're not angas of bhakti. So that way, you take any aspect of detachment, then it ultimately becomes an anga of bhakti. So therefore, it's not that we are practicing that separately. It's alright?
Yes, please.
Okay, 13. Atabam veduja shreshta varnashrama vibhagashah swanushtutasya dharmasya samsiddhirabhitoshanam. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. So here the Sula Goswami is telling the sages that therefore take into consideration the fact that in order to realize the absolute truths, what is required? Bhakti is required. And so therefore, one could be in any position in the Varnashram system, but the ultimate goal of all the Varnas and Ashramas is to please the Supreme Lord, Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. The Bhakti element has to be there. and I'm sure you have studied this in Bhagavad Gita also, whether one is a Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Ashtanga Yogi, for everyone some element of bhakti is required for the perfection of their practices. And so therefore, the ultimate goal for everyone within the Varnashram is to please the Supreme Lords. Therefore, Prabhupada writes, and in each and every one of the above-mentioned divisions of life, the aim must be to please the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. So if there is no element of pleasing the Lord within Varnashram, that is called as Asurik Varnashram. And the goal of that is simply hell. So there are references in the Shastras, even in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a reference which tells that, and even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita there's a reference which says that if one is not trying to please the Supreme Lord by the execution of Varnashram duties, then one simply falls down into the hell known as Raurava. So that's called as Asurik Varnashram. Therefore, when we speak of Varnashram, then the element of pleasing the Supreme Lord has to be there. Okay, let's read this.
Sorry, Guruji. So, in between that Varnashram that we had in Indian system, and it was only for like Brahmanas were like trying to dominate over the, the
That's
person.
that's not Varnashram.
No,
That's
so that
perverted.
we can call it as Asuri Varnashram.
Possible. Depends. I mean, difficult to generalize things, but
If the intentions were like that, then it
Yes.
is okay.
yes. Okay, can you please read this?
A double oh sorry.
What is
Okay.
it?
A doubt arises. Is there not some wrong in giving up
Worry.
worry in giving up jnana and yoga, and in not doing nitya karmas? Is there not the calamity of great sin in omission of action and ending up in hell? This verse answers, though jnana and yoga has some attraction, they depend on getting their results by performance of bhakti. But bhakti gives its results without the assistance of jnana or yoga at all. Therefore, if one pleases the Lord by bhakti yoga only, that is the perfection of dharma. The person who does not get the most part perfection, even though performing all the rules and regulations of karma, attains the perfection directly through bhakti, even though he does not perform the karmas. This is understood from the Lord's own words. Everything that can be achieved by fruitive activities, penance, knowledge, detachment, mystic yoga, charity, religious duties, and all other means of perfecting life is easily achieved by my devotee through loving service unto me. If somehow or the other my devotee desires promotion to heaven's liberation or residence in my abode, he easily achieves such benediction.
Okay, fine. So we already discussed the point that yes, ultimately everyone requires some amount of bhakti to achieve perfection, and therefore he is saying ultimately everyone has to perform bhakti. Everyone within the Varnashram has to come to the platform of pleasing the Supreme Lord, Samsiddhi Haritoshina. Finally, therefore, Sutta Goswami is coming to a conclusion. How to perform the bhakti? Tasmadekena manasa bhagavan sattvatam pati shrotabhya kirtavyascha dhyeya pujascha nityada. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. So Sutta Goswami is coming to a conclusion. So, how to practice bhakti? This is the way. Tasmad ekena manasa. One pointed attention. Vyavasayatmika buddhi. Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the protector of his devotees. So about him, Shotavya, Kirtavyasya, Dhyeya, Pujasya, Nityada, always, constantly, one should perform these various activities. So therefore Prabhupada writes in his purport, in any of the above mentioned castes and orders of life, the four processes, namely glorifying, hearing, remembering and worshipping, are general occupations. Without these principles of life, no one can exist. Activities of the living being involve engagements in these 4 different principles of life. Especially in modern society, all activities are more or less dependent on hearing and glorifying. So everyone within the Varnashram has to perform these activities of hearing, chanting and all these. Okay, so then only there is some bhakti, otherwise that's useless Varnashram. So therefore everyone has to perform these activities. And what is the ultimate goal of all these activities in the Nectar of Devotion? Again, Rupa Goswami explains in the second chapter. In the second chapter there, he explains that ultimately the goal of all these various activities within the performance of devotional service, what's the ultimate goal?
Rati for Krishna.
Okay. There's a verse from the Padma Puran which Rupa Goswami quotes. A very important verse.
Starting.
Matkata Shravada, no?
Smartavya
Satatam Vishnu
Vinajati Sarve Vidi Nishedasyor Etayor Kinkaraha. So after quoting that verse, then Rupa Goswami gives a whole description of the Varnashram system. Prabhupada of course goes in great details of Varnashram, and there he mentions that the ultimate goal for all the 4 Varnas and 4 ashramas is to come to this point of always remembering Krishna and not forgetting him. That is the ultimate goal for everyone. That is the ultimate goal. So, and of course, Srila Prabhupada gives a very nice commentary on those verses, and we'll get into more details.
Concerning Varnashram Dharma, we know that Prabhupada was inclined toward the end of his life to promote this style of life. So if we follow Varnashram Dharma, then will it become an Anga of Bhakti?
Say the last thing.
If we follow Varnashram Dharma, because it's the instruction of Prabhupada at the end of his life, will it become an Anga of Bhakti?
Okay, now again, if you see when the 64 Angas of Bhakti, Varnashram is not
It's
meant.
not.
Okay. It is a conducive platform to practice bhakti. And so Srila Prabhupada definitely encouraged the practice of Varnashram duties. That is definitely what is required. That's what helps in the performance of bhakti. And so, yes, so according to time, place, circumstances, whatever is possible, then yes, one should try to practice. That's it.
So what's the thing that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur propagated regarding some Devi Varnashram?
Yes.
What's that?
So there is the Vedic Varnashram, which essentially may not be totally based on the platform of pure devotional service. So in the Vedic Varnashram, then the members, according to their level, could practice different aspects. Somebody could be on the platform of Karma Kand, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, whatever may be their level. But ultimate goal is, of course, to please the Supreme Lord according to their realization. So all that comes under Vedic Varnashram. But when we speak of Deva Varnashram, then it is more specific, and that is, it is entirely based on pure devotional service only.
But is it not that Daivi Varnashram is followed in the temple? Like in Brahmacharis, if there's somebody is intellectual, they are asked to give classes.
Usually that in one sense naturally happens.
It happens.
It happens. It does happen. May not happen always, but
Somehow by Varnashram, it's like going to the village and staying.
No.
It has become
Varnashram means basically
Division.
occupational duties according to psychophysical natures.
Yeah.
That is the simple understanding of Varnashram. So naturally, managers and leaders within our society also tend to give services according to the psychophysical nature of devotees, and usually it happens, but of course in emergency situations and where devotees are not available, then everyone has to adjust and do whatever is the needful. That of course has to be, but that's Vaishnavism. That's much higher than Varnashram. Okay, fine.